Cerebral palsy and hypertonia, does it continue during sleep? Okay, this is where I like to see a video, but at the same time is a general content of questions, and a lot of people want to know it. Cerebral palsy is a brain injury. When there's abnormalities to the brain, cerebral palsy has happened. Now, the severities can go from very mild to very severe. There's just a range. One of the things is hypertonia, or high tone, or stiffness that people see. So sometimes kids are quite stiff during the day and they're not when they sleep. So let me explain why. However, that doesn't mean that this stops during sleep, and you have to rule out some things. The biggest problem with cerebral palsy and what we work with here is they haven't accomplished literally the first milestone, which is lying down and breathing. Two milestones. Breathing is a milestone, and so is lying down. And so within those two dichotomies of lying down and breathing, right, the complexities are more severe usually during the day because of excitement and emotional ties and so forth that going on, or they go to move. When you're going to move, especially in vertical positioning, if your child's older and they haven't gotten their horizontal positioning, this is why we're all about, do you have good foundations in your movement with your child? It's really important. So when you're working with that, you need to be involved with where they are and know where they are. So usually during sleep, lying down is a bit more accomplished, and so is breathing, because you're going very habitual. And so the body tends to relax. This isn't always the case. What are reasons why? So medically, you have to rule out laryngomalacia. Laryngomalacia is an incident where the valve can get stuck or have paralysis in around, which regulates your breath-swallow ratio. So if you're seeing your child back arching, especially during the day, but even during the night, getting that C curve, they're actually opening up their esophagus. What happens if I'm trying to drown you and so forth? You make this position. And that's very, very overlooked, because everybody assumes because your child's back arching, that's just a severity of CP. Lots of times you have cerebral palsy, but you also have another medical condition. This was the case with my son. Everything that they were telling me about, it's autism. I'm like, guys, my son is sick. He's dying. Autism I can handle. My son is dying. We have to take care of him. And it was true. It took him 3 years to find the Haemophilus influenza. So when you're working with that, you have to always rule out medical. Another medical that can happen more so when you sleep is reflux, Sanderson syndrome, Barrett's esophagus, eosinophilic esophagitis. If you have a hiatal hernia, these kind of medical conditions are more severe during your sleep. And so again, because of the pain, discomfort, your child can be or present more stiff during sleep. Children can seize more or only during the night. When they kick into sleep, that drop that we kind of feel when we're going to sleep and the same thing when we wake up, those are prime areas for seizures activities. When we're going into REM, cortisol, hormone, different types of hormones. Those, again, can be prime areas for seizures, and you might not catch them because they're sleeping. You might see a jerk when they're sleeping, and it could be a seizure, and that also can add to the stiffness or the inabilities to sleep through the night lying down. So these are things that you need to work out and rule out. Is your child, in a sense, comfortable enough to sleep? If they feel like they're falling because they have not reached the milestone of lying down, that's where the dystonic movements come into play. Babies aren't born with dystonia, they develop dystonia. These are all the things that you have to look at, but don't just assume that your baby's stiff at night, oh, that's the CP. This is where thorough evaluations for movement and for medical need to be taken care of with your child. And also remember, too, just because you didn't have a traumatic birth doesn't mean you don't have cerebral palsy. You could have had a stroke in utero. There are many silent ways of creating damage to the brain when you think that everything is okay. And this is also the biggest misconception, that people think because there was no birth trauma that my baby is okay. You have to have evaluations. Medically, that's where you start off with your primary physician and you go to specialists, especially if there's reflux. I see way too much reflux done during with basic peds, which is fine. However, if you have other complexities going on or medications involved, I highly recommend that you see and follow up with a gastroenterologist. And there are various specialists that are involved in your child's care for a reason. If there is concern too for any kind of cerebral palsy, you need to make your call with your neurologist to rule out what's going on with your child. If there's potential, in some conditions, it's not that when they or if they get seizures, it's when. And they might be proactive as to lessening the chances of seizures. That's why a lot of people fight, but go on or do go on a proactive lessening the brain for the first 6 months. Let's say they'll be put on seizure medicine, even though the seizures really haven't presented, or maybe there was just one at birth, but just to calm down the system. So those are things that you need to look out for, but they shouldn't be just stiff because of the cerebral palsy. Most likely, or what you have to rule out is underlying medical conditions, which get really overlooked. I know, like with my son, again, they just kept saying he was autistic. And I'm like, I know, but he's sick. And when they finally found it, all of a sudden they act like, where was I? And I'm like, I've been going to doctors left and right. I didn't have 2 opinions, guys. I had about 26. And it really took that long and that many surgeries. We even had one surgery where they threw out everything in the garbage. They didn't send it out to pathology. Standard OR procedures just weren't followed. You really need to know what's going on with your child. I know it's fatiguing. I know you just want to put your head in a pillow sometimes and just cry it away. It just, it's not fair. It's not great, but it's just got to be done, because if you're expecting someone else to be losing sleep over your child, I'm not saying people don't work hard in your people's lives, in your lives, in your family's lives, but it's going to be all on you. And these are the things that you need to look at and make sure that other things aren't going on and they're just being overlooked. Thanks.